Hey guys, Matt here. This is going to be a video talking about defensive handgun calibers. Now, this is primarily going to be geared towards people who may be buying their first defensive handgun or their first concealed carry handgun, but primarily something that you're going to use for self-defense in some way. Now, there's a lot of good information out there. You can look on YouTube, you can look on forums, you can, talk to friends and family, talk to people at your local gun shop, and you're going to get a lot of good information on this. But a lot of times, it's conflicting information, and so it's really kind of hard to make a good decision on it. Now, the information I'm going to give you, I'm passing along. It's information I've got, over so many years of just getting different opinions on these kinds of things. But it is very much something I believe in, and I think it's the right way to go when helping to figure out what type of defensive handgun you want to go with. I'm not going to say, get this particular caliber or this handgun or this handgun, but I want to give you guys some information that's going to give you the tools you'll need to kind of make the right decision for yourself. Now, the first thing you want to understand when it comes to trying to figure out what is a good defensive caliber is you need to understand what the FBI standards are. Now, the FBI standards are a series of tests that the FBI came out with back in the late 80s as they were moving off of the .38 Special Revolver and they wanted to move into a semi-automatic handgun. They wanted a caliber that was going to meet certain criteria. Now, these tests, tested things like a wound channel and kinetic energy, but primarily what it focused on was penetration. And the reason for this is because the .38 Special Revolver, which they were just coming off of, was not known for its penetration. So they devised a series of tests that eventually would equal out to basically saying, hey, look, penetration in any handgun caliber we're going to use needs to be between 12 to 18 inches inside the human body. Right? Now, what you saw at that point was you saw a lot of manufacturers start to manufacture ammunition to meet these standards, and not just in any one caliber, but in all your main semi-automatic handgun calibers. And the reason they did this was that even though the FBI ended up going to 40, they knew that between other law enforcement agencies and other government agencies, that the FBI standards would begin to get used across the board. And so they knew other agencies may use 9mm or 45 or whatever. They wanted all their handgun calibers to be able to meet these requirements so that that way they would sell more ammunition to everybody. So that's what they started doing. Then a few years later you had the IWBA, which came in and kind of narrowed down the standards a bit, and it kind of narrowed the playing field as far as instead of going from 12 to 18 inches on penetration, it was 14 to 16 inches, things like that. And again, you saw ammo manufacturers kind of step up to the plate and start to manufacture their ammo that way. And so what we have today basically is when it comes to your standard, most popular calibers, 9, 40, 45, they all pretty much perform the same when it comes to penetration inside the human body. Okay? So then the next question we have to ask is, why is penetration so important? Well, that's when we get into understanding a little bit about human physiology and understanding the psychology behind being shot. Well, first of all, 9 times out of 10, you can shoot somebody with a .22 caliber round and they're going to stop what they're doing because their survival instinct's going to kick in and they're going to try and retreat. Okay? So why don't we all run around carrying little .22 handguns? Well, it's because of that extra 10% of the time that the psychological stop may not work, okay? That they may not choose to retreat, that survival instinct may not kick in, or if it does kick in, it may kick in a different way than them trying to retreat. And for that reason, we don't carry these. We carry stuff like this, or this, or this, right? We carry larger calibers to hopefully do more damage. Now, that's understanding the psychological side of things, but what about the physical side of things, the human physiology? Well, when it comes to getting shot, there's really only a few places on the human body that will actually drop somebody if you are shot there, and that's somewhere in the central nervous system, which basically means, brain or spine, or the heart. One of those 3 places, you shoot somebody even once, even with a .22 caliber pistol, and you're going to physically incapacitate them. You're going to prevent them from continuing doing whatever it is they're determined to do. All right? But if you've ever talked to anybody who's ever been in any kind of combat situation or defensive situation, they will tell you that doing that under stress with the adrenaline pumping when you're caught off guard is not easy to do at all. Okay? So, what do? You start shooting at somebody and you can't hit any one of those vital spots and you need them to stop. So the best thing to do is to continue putting rounds on target. Now, what you're doing by continuing to putting rounds on target is you're causing more tissue damage. And with more tissue damage comes more blood loss. And with more blood loss comes incapacitation. The body can only handle so much blood loss before it becomes completely incapacitated. So, essentially, putting more rounds into the human body, causing more damage, poking more holes and allowing more blood to leave the body is another way to quickly incapacitate someone. This is why penetration is important, because the more penetration you can get into the human body, the more blood loss you can cause and the quicker you can incapacitate them. So, that's why penetration is important. So now we gotta look at, well, we know penetration is more important, so what can we do when buying a handgun if all the calibers pretty much nowadays, because of modern ammunition, pretty much penetrate inside the human body the same? What can we do in making a decision now when buying a handgun to help us out down the road if we ever get ourselves into a situation? Well, primarily, the one thing we can do is choose something with a higher capacity. And the reason being is exactly what we just talked about. If you cannot hit one of those vital areas, you want to continue to put rounds on target, as many rounds as possible, to incapacitate them as quickly as possible. And especially in a stressful situation, okay, when you might not hit them with every round, you want more rounds. Now, this is where people tend to think that, oh, well, you're telling everybody they should get 9mm. Not at all, okay? You can get Glocks in .45 caliber that hold 15 rounds. To me, that's a good amount of rounds. That is sufficient to do some damage. Now, I choose to go 9mm, but that's my personal choice. Okay? Same thing with .40 caliber. You can get .40 caliber handguns that will hold over 15, 16 rounds. Okay? That is a good option. Basically, what it boils down to, guys, is when you're going and choosing a handgun for self-defense, as long as you're sticking to one of the major calibers that is proven to do damage to the human body, okay, you're looking at a caliber that's going to be proven to have good penetration, regardless of whether you go 40, 45, 9mm, whatever it is. So one thing you can choose at the time of you purchasing a handgun that may at some point down the line help you in a defensive situation is choosing something with the most capacity possible in that particular caliber. So that's what it boils down to, guys. Choose whatever caliber you want, but try and get the maximum capacity you can in your particular caliber. Again, some people are going to say, well, that leaves out things like revolvers. And traditionally speaking, it's true. 6 rounds of 38 or 357 here versus 17 plus 1 here of 9mm. I have a whole lot more chances of putting holes in somebody with this than I do with this, especially when you factor in reload time. So there are some ups and downs to a lot of different stuff, and this video may challenge a lot of people's traditional thinkings on self-defense and what's good. But again, it comes from a good place. There's a lot of good information out there. There's a lot of good ways that we can determine how to choose a caliber and how to choose a handgun. And hopefully this video will help some of you guys out in making that decision yourself and figuring out what caliber and what type of handgun to go with. So anyway, guys, that's it. Appreciate you watching, and we'll talk to you later, guys. Thanks.